The large meeting room on Harmony Station felt cold. The air systems hummed quietly as Ambassador Lisa Grant gathered her papers. She had spent 3 years sitting at this same table, talking with the representatives of the galactic hegemony. 3 years of getting nowhere. Ambassador, please reconsider, said the alien diplomat across from her. His blue skin wrinkled around his 4 eyes as he spoke. The hegemony only wishes for peaceful sharing of technologies. Lisa looked at her team members. They all showed the same tired expression. Jack Brown, her chief science advisor, gave a small nod. They had discussed this moment for weeks. It was time. High Commissioner Zelt, Lisa said, standing up straight. Humanity has listened to your demands for 3 years. You ask us to give you our quantum shield technology. You offer nothing in return. You threaten us when we refuse. This is not a negotiation. It is a demand for surrender. The alien's skin changed color slightly, showing his anger. You mistake our patience for weakness, human. The hegemony has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Your species has barely left its home system. Lisa placed her hands on the table. And that is why we are done talking. Humanity will not bow to bullies, no matter how old or powerful they claim to be. She nodded to her team. They all stood up together. The hegemony representatives looked shocked. No species had ever walked away from them before. This meeting is over, Lisa said. So are the peace talks. Good day, High Commissioner. The human team walked out, leaving stunned silence behind them. Back on the human ship Valiant, Admiral John Miller watched the diplomatic shuttle return from the station. His gray hair was cut short and his uniform was perfectly clean. He had never believed in these talks. The aliens only understood strength. Sir, the diplomatic team has docked, said a young officer. Thank you, Lieutenant, John replied. Tell Ambassador Grant I'll meet her in the briefing room. John walked through the ship's corridors, nodding at crew members as he passed. Everyone knew what was happening. The talks had failed. War was coming. But they were ready. In the briefing room, Lisa looked tired but determined as she entered. Ambassador, John said, offering his hand. Welcome back. Lisa shook it firmly. Admiral, it went exactly as we expected. They were shocked that we would walk away. Did they threaten us directly? Not in words. But the message was clear. Lisa sat down heavily. They'll be coming for us now. John nodded. Then it's a good thing we've been preparing. On the large screen in the room, a secure call connected. The face of Defense Director Mary Watson appeared. Her dark skin contrasted with her silver hair. Ambassador, Admiral, she greeted them. I take it the hegemony didn't suddenly become reasonable? No, Director, Lisa replied. We've ended the talks. Mary nodded. The Security Council is meeting in 1 hour. The President will want your full report. In the meantime, I'm authorizing Operation Hidden Shield. John felt a small smile form on his face. For 3 years, while the diplomats talked, the military had been building, preparing defenses that the hegemony knew nothing about. The stealth platforms are ready, he said. We can have the entire Sol system protected within 6 hours. Good, Mary responded. And Captain Hill's special project? A new voice spoke, up from the doorway. It's ready for action, Director. They turned to see Captain Susan Hill enter the room. She carried a small data pad and looked confident. The Phantom Drive works perfectly, Susan continued. All test ships can now shift, partially out of phase with normal space. They're completely invisible to all hegemony sensors. Lisa looked surprised. I thought we were still years away from that technology. Susan smiled. That's what we wanted the hegemony to think. While they were demanding our old quantum shield. Tech, we developed something much better. John turned back to the screen. Director, with your permission, I'd like to begin deploying our Phantom ships to the outer colonies immediately. The hegemony will likely strike there first. Mary nodded. Permission granted. The President has already signed the authorization. As of this moment, we are on war footing. In the Grand Palace on the hegemony capital world, Supreme Commander Salthrak received the news with anger. His tall, thin body shook slightly as the messenger finished speaking. The humans did what? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. The messenger, a lower-ranked official, trembled. They walked. Away from the negotiations, Supreme One. Ambassador Grant stated that humanity was no longer interested in discussions. Zalthrak's six-fingered hand tightened into a fist. These mammals think they can insult the hegemony after we honored them with our attention? Around the large circular chamber, other hegemony officials looked nervous. None wanted to speak. Supreme One, ventured General Cruel, the oldest military leader present. Perhaps we should consider that the humans might have some hidden... Hidden what? Zalthrak interrupted. Hidden strength? Don't be foolish. Our intelligence reports are clear. They have a handful of primitive warships. Their quantum shield technology is impressive for such a young species, but nothing compared to our firepower. He stood from his ornate chair and walked to the large window overlooking the capital city. Massive towers stretched for miles, built over thousands of years of hegemony rule. No, he continued, the humans need to be taught their place. They need to understand what happens to those who defy us. He turned back to face the gathered officials. Prepare the Third Fleet. We will strike their outer colonies first. A simple demonstration of power. Then they will return to negotiations begging for mercy. General Cruel looked worried but nodded. As you command, Supreme One. After the others had left, Zalthrak's chief intelligence officer remained behind. Supreme One, there is something strange in our latest reports, the officer said quietly. Our spy satellites have detected unusual energy readings from the Sol system, and several of our long-range scouts have gone missing near human territory. Zalthrak waved a dismissive hand. Technical failures. The humans are primitives. They've barely had faster-than-light travel for 2 centuries. The hegemony was exploring the stars when their ancestors were still living in caves. The intelligence officer bowed and left, but his worried expression remained. Back on Earth, in the underground headquarters of the United Earth Defense Force, Lisa presented her report to the Security Council. The room was silent as she finished. So there we have it, she concluded. The hegemony will attack, probably within days. President Daniel Stewart, a calm man with kind eyes but a strong voice, looked around at his advisors. Then it settled. Operation Hidden Shield is active. Admiral Miller will coordinate our defenses. Captain Hill's Phantom drive ships will be our surprise advantage. He stood up. Humanity didn't want this war. We tried for peace. But if the hegemony wants to learn what happens when they push humans too far, we'll teach them. Around the table, heads nodded in agreement. The waiting was over. The real test was about to begin. 2 weeks passed quickly. On the small defense platform called Sentinel-7, Lieutenant Ryan Cooper stared at his control screen. The platform looked like nothing special from the outside. Just another small human outpost near the mining colony. On Ceres. The hegemony would think it was harmless. That was the point. Ryan checked his systems again. Everything was ready. The Phantom grid was fully charged, but inactive. His orders were clear. Wait until the enemy was fully committed to their attack, then spring the trap. Any sign of them yet? Asked his second-in-command, Sarah Lee. Ryan shook his head. Nothing yet, but fleet intelligence says they're coming. Today. As if on cue, the alarm sounded. Ryan's heart beat faster as he watched the screen. Red dots appeared. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. 300 hegemony warships just dropped out of hyperspace, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the odds. They're moving toward Ceres. Ryan opened the secure communication channel. Sentinel-7 to Fleet Command. The package has arrived. The voice of General Kate Murphy came through clearly. Confirmed, Sentinel-7. Hold position and wait for my mark. In the Fleet Command Center on Mars, Kate watched the massive holographic display. The hegemony fleet was moving exactly as predicted. They thought they were facing a small, poorly defended mining colony. They had no idea what was waiting for them. All Phantom ships report ready, General, said her communications officer. Kate nodded. 500 of humanity's most advanced. Warships were hidden in dimensional pockets around Ceres. Thanks to the Phantom Drive, they were completely invisible. Not just to sensors, but to the naked eye as well. They existed slightly out of phase with normal space. "Let them get closer," Kate said. "We need them fully committed." On his flagship, the Hegemony commander laughed as he saw the small human defenses. "This will be even easier than Supreme Commander Zalthrak predicted," he told his bridge crew. "These humans have only a few primitive defense platforms. Our ships will crush them in minutes." He gave the order to advance. The massive Hegemony fleet moved forward, weapons powering up. They planned to destroy the human defenses, then demand the surrender of the mining colony. It would be a quick victory to please their Supreme Commander. "They're in optimal position," Kate said, watching the enemy ships bunch together as they prepared to attack. "Now, Lieutenant Cooper." On Sentinel-7, Ryan took a deep breath and pressed his hand against the activation panel. "Phantom grid activating," he said. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself appeared to ripple and tear. Where there had been empty void seconds before, now 500 human warships appeared, their weapons already aimed at the Hegemony vessels. The flagship of the human fleet was the Defiance, commanded by Admiral William Jones. He was an older man with a scarred face from an earlier battle with Hegemony forces. "This is Admiral Jones to all ships," he said, his voice calm. "Remember your training. Remember New Brighton." Everyone knew what he meant. 10 years earlier, the Hegemony had raided the human colony on New Brighton. They claimed it was a mistake, a navigational error. But thousands of civilians died. That was the day many in the human military, including William, realized that true peace with the Hegemony might be impossible. "Open fire," William ordered. The human fleet attacked from all sides. The Hegemony ships tried to respond, but they were caught completely by surprise. Their formation, perfect for attacking a weak enemy, now made them easy targets. William watched as the first enemy ships exploded. "Don't destroy them all," he ordered. "Remember, we want prisoners and intact ships when possible." The battle lasted only 20 minutes. In that short time, the once mighty Hegemony fleet was reduced to floating wreckage. 200 of their ships were destroyed. The remaining 100 surrendered, their crews shocked by the sudden appearance of the human fleet and the power of their weapons. William stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the prisoners being brought aboard. The aliens looked smaller, up close, less frightening. "Send a message to Fleet Command," he told his communications officer. "Tell them first strike successful. The Phantom grid worked perfectly." On the Hegemony capital world, Supreme Commander Zalthrak received the news with disbelief. His third fleet defeated impossible. "What do you mean, appeared from nowhere?" he shouted at the messenger. "Ships don't just appear." General Krull stepped forward cautiously. "Supreme One, we're getting similar reports from other sectors. Human fleets have appeared near all our forward bases. Our ships are being destroyed, or captured everywhere." Zalthrak's skin paled. "How? How is this possible? Our intelligence said they had fewer than 100 warships total." His intelligence chief looked terrified. "The energy readings I reported, Supreme One. It seems the humans have developed some kind of technology that allows them to hide their ships in some kind of dimensional pocket." Zalthrak smashed his fist on his throne. "Why didn't we know about this? How did they keep this secret?" No one dared answer. The truth was painful. The Hegemony had become arrogant after thousands of years of easy victories. They had underestimated humanity's creativity and determination. Back on Earth, President Daniel Stewart addressed the World Council. "The first phase of our defense has succeeded," he said. "The Hegemony's attack has been stopped, but this is just the beginning." Defense Director Mary Watson presented the next phase of the plan. "Now we push into their territory," she explained. "Not to conquer or destroy, but to free the species they've enslaved and end their ability to threaten others." In the medical bay of the Defiance, a human doctor treated a wounded Hegemony officer. The alien looked confused. "Why are you helping?" Me? He asked. We are enemies. The doctor shook her head. We're soldiers, not monsters. Wounded prisoners get medical care. That's our way. The alien was silent for a moment. We were told humans were savages, he finally said. Primitive and cruel. Your leaders lied to you, the doctor replied simply. They lie to everyone. That's why we had to fight. On Sentinel-7, Ryan Cooper received new orders. His small platform was now being upgraded to a forward command post. More ships were arriving daily as humanity prepared for the next phase of the war. You did well, Lieutenant, General Kate told him during a video call. Your timing was perfect. Ryan nodded. What happens next, General? Kate's expression was serious. Now we take the fight to them. The hegemony has ruled through fear for too long. It's time someone showed the galaxy another way. As human ships prepared to jump to hegemony space, Admiral William Jones looked at the star map in his quarters. So many worlds under hegemony. Control. So many species living in fear. We didn't want this war, he said quietly to himself. But we're going to finish it. 1 month after the first battle, the human fleet moved deep into hegemony space. On the bridge of the scout ship Falcon, Commander Nancy Bell checked her equipment one last time. Her mission was crucial and dangerous. All systems ready, Commander, said her pilot, Alan West. We can use the Phantom Drive whenever you give the word. Nancy nodded. Her team of 6 Special Forces soldiers looked calm but ready. They were approaching Proxima Centauri III, home to one of the hegemony's largest communication hubs. This facility controlled all the messages sent to the many alien species under hegemony rule. Remember the plan, Nancy told her team. We go, in quiet, plant the virus and get out. The hegemony has been lying to its subject species for centuries. Today we show them the truth. She gave the order, and the Falcon shifted into Phantom phase. The small ship disappeared from normal space, becoming completely invisible to the hegemony's sensors. They passed through the outer defenses without triggering a single alarm. Landing in 30 seconds, Alan reported. No sign they've detected us. The ship touched down in a small valley 2 miles from the communication hub. Nancy led her team out, all wearing the new Phantom suits that made them nearly invisible. Move out, she ordered quietly. On Earth, the War Council met in the secure underground facility. President Daniel Stewart listened as Ambassador Lisa Grant explained the diplomatic situation. 7 species that were under hegemony control have reached out to us secretly, Lisa said. They want to know our intentions. They're afraid we plan to replace the hegemony as the new rulers of the galaxy. Daniel shook his head firmly. That's never been our goal. Make that clear to them, Ambassador. We don't want their territories or resources. We just want the hegemony's aggression to end. Admiral John Miller reported on the military progress. Our fleets have disabled or captured 60% of the hegemony's major military installations. We've been careful to minimize civilian casualties. This has surprised many of the subject species. The hegemony always told them humans were bloodthirsty savages. That's their tactic with everyone, Lisa added. They tell each species that the others are violent and dangerous, and only the hegemony can protect them. It's how they've kept control for thousands of years. Defense Director Mary Watson checked her secure tablet. Commander Bell's team should be reaching the communication hub now. Once her mission succeeds, the hegemony's lies will be exposed. At the communication hub, Nancy and her team moved silently through the corridors. They encountered few guards. The hegemony had grown complacent after centuries without serious opposition. This is it, whispered her tech specialist, Ben Cole, as they reached the main control room. Give me 5 minutes to upload the virus. While Ben worked, the others secured the area. Nancy checked the time. They were right on schedule. Done, Ben said finally. The virus is in their system. It's already spreading to all their communication networks. Nancy smiled. Good work. Now let's get out of here before they notice. They left as quietly as they had entered. By the time the hegemony realized something was wrong, the Falcon was already back in space, shifting into Phantom phase and disappearing. The virus quickly did its work. On thousands of worlds across hegemony space, The carefully crafted lies began to unravel. Species that had been told they alone suffered under harsh rules now saw that everyone was treated badly. Races that had been turned against each other by hegemony propaganda suddenly learned the truth. On the hegemony capital, Supreme Commander Zalthrak watched in growing horror as reports flooded in. Rebellions on 17 core worlds, reported General Cruel. The Talarians have seized our shipyards in their sector. The Volturi have declared independence. The humans have somehow revealed all our secure communications. Zalthrak's rage was terrible to witness. Use the planet killer, he ordered. Target the Terralon system. Their people have been most vocal in supporting the humans. We will make an example of them. General Cruel looked shocked. Supreme One, there are 4 billion civilians on Terralon. Our own people. The planet killer has never been used on one of our own worlds. Do it, Zalthrak screamed. The others will learn what happens to traitors. Reluctantly, the order was given. The hegemony's most terrible weapon, the planet killer, moved into position near Terralon. The news reached the human fleet too late. Colonel Frank Moore, leading the assault on the hegemony shipyards at Epsilon Eridani, received the urgent message from Fleet Command. They're going to use the planet killer on Terralon, he told his officers. We can't reach them in time. Frank's second-in-command, Major Linda Parker, looked horrified. 4 billion people just to make a point. This is why we're fighting, Frank said grimly. This is why the hegemony has to be stopped. Hours later, the terrible news spread across the galaxy. Terralon was gone, its surface burned to ash, its people vaporized. The hegemony expected this show of force to crush the growing rebellions. They were wrong. The destruction of Terralon did not inspire fear as Zalthrak had hoped. Instead, it created a wave of fury. Species that had been hesitant now openly joined the human cause. The hegemony had finally gone too far. On his ship, Sub-Commander Vexlor of the hegemony made a difficult decision. He had served the Empire loyally for decades, but the destruction of Terralon had shown him the truth. His leaders were monsters. He sent a coded message to the nearest human fleet. This is Sub-Commander Vexlor of the Hegemony Defense Force. I wish to speak with your command about defection. It was unprecedented. No high-ranking hegemony officer had ever defected. But Vexlor would not be the last. Back on the Falcon, Commander Nancy Bell received new orders. Her team was being sent to the hegemony's primary military academy on Rigel 7. Their mission, to extract the young officers who had reached out wanting to switch sides. The tide is turning, Nancy told her team. The hegemony is fracturing from within. In the War Council on Earth, Admiral John Miller presented the latest intelligence. Vexlor has given us the access codes to the hegemony's defense network. We can now bypass many of their remaining strongholds. President Daniel looked troubled despite the good news. 4 billion dead on Terralon. We have to end this war quickly before Zalthrak becomes desperate enough to use the planet killer again. Ambassador Lisa nodded in agreement. I'm meeting with representatives from 7 former hegemony species tomorrow. They want to form an alliance with us, not just for this war, but for the future. The war had entered a new phase. What began as humanity defending itself had become something much larger, a fight for freedom that spanned the galaxy. And the hegemony was beginning to realize they had awakened something they couldn't control. 3 months into the war, humanity achieved what no other species had managed in 10,000 years. The hegemony's iron grip on the galaxy was breaking. Across dozens of star systems, long-oppressed species were rising up. Inspired by the human example, Admiral John Miller's ship, the Valiant, approached the neutral space station Hope. This station had once been called Harmony, where the failed peace talks had taken place. Now it had a new name and a new purpose. The Talarian ships are already docked, Admiral, reported his navigator. John nodded. This meeting was historic. The Talarians had been the hegemony's most feared enforcers for centuries. Their sudden defection had shocked everyone. Keep our weapons powered down, John ordered. We're here as friends. Inside the station's large conference room, John faced High Admiral Zorvex of the Talarian fleet. The alien was impressive, nearly 7 feet tall with scale-like skin and 4 arms. His species had evolved as predators, and it showed. "Admiral Miller," Zorvek said in his deep, rumbling voice, "your species has done the impossible. You have broken the hegemony." John shook his head. "We've hurt them, but they're not defeated. Yet. That's why this meeting is so important." Zorvek studied the human with his yellow eyes. "For 10,000 years, the Talarians served the hegemony. We believed their lies that we were their favored servants, while other races were inferior. The hegemony told every species the same thing," John replied. "They kept you all fighting each other instead of noticing who the real enemy was." Zorvex extended one of his 4 arms. "The Talarian fleet, 1,000 warships and their crews, now stands with humanity." John stepped forward and took the offered limb in a human handshake. "Our peoples are not so different. We both value strength and courage, but true strength comes from cooperation, not domination." That handshake was broadcast across the galaxy. It marked the beginning of what would soon be called the Interstellar Alliance. On Earth, scientist Dr. Elizabeth Brown worked day and night in her laboratory. Since the destruction of Terralon, stopping the hegemony's planet-killer weapon had become humanity's top priority. "I think I've found something," she told her team, "a mix of humans and aliens. Look at these energy patterns." Her chief assistant, a blue-skinned Volturi named Krell, studied the data. "This could work," he said excitedly, "but we need a way to deliver the disruptor field directly into the firing chamber of the weapon." Elizabeth nodded. "That's the hard part. We'd need a ship with a phantom drive to get close enough." Another scientist, a reptilian Xanthi, spoke up. "My people have developed a shield that could protect such a ship for approximately 20 seconds inside the energy field. Perhaps together." Elizabeth smiled. This was how they would win. Different species combining their knowledge. "Let's get to work," she said. In his palace on the hegemony capital world, Supreme Commander Zalthrak was no longer the confident ruler he had once been. His skin had paled and his hands shook slightly. Most of his advisors had fled or defected. General Krul had been executed for suggesting surrender. "The humans have formed an alliance with 17 former subject species," reported the last, loyal intelligence officer. "They call it the Interstellar Alliance. Their combined fleets now outnumber our remaining forces 3-1. Zalthrak barely seemed to hear. "The Planet Killer Fleet," he mumbled. "Is it ready?" "Yes, Supreme One. 5 ships, each carrying a Planet Killer weapon. But where will you deploy them?" Zalthrak's eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. "Earth. We will destroy the human homeworld. Without it, their alliance will crumble." Officer looked shocked. "A direct attack on Sol system? Our remaining forces would be sacrificed." "It doesn't matter," Zalthrak snarled. "Nothing matters except making the humans pay. Send the order. All remaining ships will escort the planet killers to Earth." On the defected hegemony cruiser Freedom, formerly the Imperial Fist, Sub-Commander Vexilor received the coded transmission from his last remaining spy in Zalthrak's inner circle. "They're targeting Earth," he told Admiral William Jones urgently. "The entire planet killer fleet, escorted by everything they have left." William immediately sent the alert to Fleet Command. Within hours, the largest fleet in human history was being assembled. Ships from 17 alien species joined the human vessels, forming a defensive line between Earth and the approaching hegemony forces. Admiral John Miller took command of the combined fleet. "This is not just a fight for Earth," he told the assembled captains via holographic conference. "This is a fight for the future of the galaxy. If we win here, the hegemony's reign of terror ends forever." The fleet spread out in a new formation developed by human and Talarian tacticians. The Phantom drive ships would form the inner defense layer, using their unique abilities to confuse and disrupt the enemy. The heavier warships would create a killing zone, catching the hegemony forces in crossfire. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper, now promoted to captain, commanded his own ship, the Redemption. As he studied the tactical display, he noticed something. "The planet killer weapons all have the same weakness," he told his bridge crew. Their firing chamber has to open just before they activate the main weapon. That's when they're vulnerable. His tactical officer nodded. But to exploit that, a ship would have to be positioned directly in front of the weapon when it's about to fire. It would be a suicide mission. Ryan thought about it. Then he opened a channel to Admiral Miller. "Sir, I have an idea about the planet killers. It's risky, but it might work." After explaining his plan, there was a long silence. Finally, the Admiral spoke. "That's a one-way trip, Captain Cooper." "Maybe not," Ryan replied. "If we time the Phantom drive just right, we might be able to shift out in time. And Dr. Brown's team has developed a disruptor field that could disable the weapon." Admiral Miller considered it. "I can't order you to do this." "You don't have to, sir," Ryan said quietly. "Sometimes you have to stand in the fire to put it out. My crew and I volunteer." The Hegemony fleet appeared at the edge of the Sol system 3 days later. It was still impressive. 200 warships escorting the 5 planet killer vessels. They had committed everything they had left to this final desperate attack. The combined Alliance fleet waited. As the enemy approached, Admiral Miller gave the order, "All ships, execute Battle Plan Phoenix." The Phantom drive ships, including Ryan's Redemption, vanished from normal space. The trap was set. The largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin. On the Redemption, Ryan addressed his crew one last time. "We know what we have to do. Get us into position when that weapon starts to power up. The future of Earth depends on it." His crew nodded. No one showed fear, though they all knew the danger. They had seen what happened to Terralon. They would not let Earth suffer the same fate. The Battle of Sol began with a blinding flash as the first shots were fired. The Hegemony fleet pushed forward, their remaining ships fighting with the desperation of those who had no retreat. The Alliance fleet held firm, fighting not just for Earth but for a new future. On the bridge of the Redemption, Captain Ryan Cooper watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. His ship remained in Phantom phase, invisible to the enemy. "Target approaching, Captain," reported his sensor officer. "Lead planet killer is moving into firing position." Ryan nodded. "All hands, prepare for close approach. Engineering, have the disruptor field ready." The plan was dangerous, but simple. When the planet killer opened its firing chamber to target Earth, the Redemption would shift back into normal space directly in front of it. They would fire the disruptor field developed by Dr. Brown's team into the open chamber, then attempt to shift back to Phantom phase before the weapon exploded. "Weapons are charged," reported his tactical officer. "Disruptor field at full power." Ryan took a deep breath. "Helm, move us into position." The Redemption glided silently through space, still in Phantom phase. The massive planet killer, unaware of their presence, began its firing sequence. The huge weapon slowly opened, revealing its glowing heart. "Now," Ryan ordered. The Redemption shifted back to normal space, appearing directly in front of the planet killer's open chamber. For a moment, both sides seemed shocked by the ship's sudden appearance. "Fire disruptor!" Ryan shouted. The Redemption's main weapon fired, sending the specially designed energy field directly into the planet killer's exposed core. Alarms blared across the bridge as the enemy weapon's energy began to destabilize. "Phantom drive now," Ryan ordered. The ship shuddered as they attempted to shift out of phase. The engineering deck reported damage from the intense energy field. The Phantom drive strained under the pressure. "Drive failing," reported the chief engineer. "We're stuck in half phase." Outside, the planet killer began to break apart as the disruptor field did its work. The weapon would not fire on Earth. But the Redemption was caught in the backlash of energy. "All power to forward shields," Ryan ordered. The explosion ripped through space, catching the Redemption in its edge. The ship tumbled, damaged but intact. They had survived, barely. More importantly, they had proven the planet killers could be defeated. Across the battlefield, Alliance ships saw what happened. Admiral John Miller immediately sent new orders. "All Phantom drive ships, target the remaining planet killers. Use the Redemption's approach." 4 more battles played out across the Sol system as brave crews replicated Ryan's tactic. One by one, the planet killers were destroyed, their terrible weapons never firing. On his flagship, Supreme Commander Zalthrak watched in disbelief as his ultimate weapons failed. "Impossible," he whispered. "How could they know the weakness?" His remaining officers looked at each other nervously. No one wanted to be near the Supreme Commander when he finally accepted defeat. "Supreme one brave officer finally said. "Perhaps we should consider withdrawing to regroup." He never finished the sentence. Zalthrak killed him with a personal weapon, then turned to the others. "There will be no retreat. Fight to the last ship." But his orders never reached the fleet. Sub-Commander Vexilor had made sure of that. The communication systems had been sabotaged. Instead, hegemony captains received a different message, one calling for surrender. As the battle turned decisively against them, hegemony ships began to lower their shields in surrender. The once mighty empire was collapsing. Zalthrak, seeing his defeat, made one final choice. Rather than face justice, he activated the self-destruct sequence on his flagship. The massive explosion marked the end of the Supreme Commander, and effectively, the end of the war. 6 months after humanity had walked away from the peace table, representatives from over 30 species gathered on Earth. The Great Hall of the United Nations had been expanded to accommodate delegates with different atmospheric needs and body types. Ambassador Lisa Grant, who had started this journey by walking away from failed negotiations, now led a very different kind of meeting. "Today we sign the Galactic Concordat," she announced to the assembled delegates. "Not a peace treaty between enemies, but a foundation for cooperation among equals." President Daniel Stewart stepped forward. "The hegemony ruled through fear and division for 10,000 years. They told each species that they were alone, that others were enemies. We've proven that was a lie." He gestured to the gathered representatives. "Look around you. Different biologies, different cultures, different histories, but we all share the same desire for freedom and respect." The signing ceremony took hours as each species added their mark to the document. Unlike the old hegemony, which had conquered and subjugated, the new Concordat was based on mutual defense and cooperation. Admiral John Miller watched from the side of the room. "Who would have thought that walking away from peace talks would lead to real peace?" he said quietly to Captain Susan Hill. Susan smiled. "Sometimes you have to stand up to bullies before you can have true friendship." On the newly liberated world of Terralon, human engineers worked alongside 7 alien species. The planet had been devastated by the hegemony's planet killer, but together, they were beginning to repair the damage. It would take decades, but the new atmosphere generators were already making parts of the surface habitable again. Captain Ryan Cooper, recovered from his injuries, stood with representatives from all the Alliance species. They were dedicating a memorial to those lost on all sides of the conflict. "We remember not just those who died fighting," Ryan said to the gathered crowd, "but the innocent victims of the hegemony's cruelty. We build this new galaxy in their memory." Dr. Elizabeth Brown's laboratory had expanded. What had begun as a desperate effort to counter the planet-killer weapons had evolved into something new: the Concordat Science Council. Scientists from dozens of species now worked together, sharing knowledge that the hegemony had kept separated for millennia. "The Phantom Drive technology is being repurposed," Elizabeth explained to visiting diplomats. "What was once a weapon of war will now carry explorers to regions of space no one has yet reached." In a classroom on Earth, a young student named Jimmy raised his hand during a history lesson. "Teacher," he asked, "why did humans succeed when so many other species had failed against the hegemony?" The teacher, Ms. Harris, smiled at the question. "That's an excellent question, Jimmy. There were many factors. Our technology, our strategy, our determination. But perhaps the most important was something simple." She looked around at her class, which now included children from 3 different species. "When pushed too far, humanity doesn't just fight back. We changed the rules of the game. And then, most importantly, we offered friendship once the fighting was done." Outside the classroom window, ships from a dozen worlds moved through the sky. Not war vessels now, but traders and explorers. The galaxy had entered a new era, And it had all begun with humanity walking away from a table where no real peace was possible.